The fifth horseman of the apocalypse. The book of Revelations in the New Testament lists 4 horsemen of the apocalypse as conquest, war, famine and death, while in the Old Testament's book of Ezekiel they are sword, famine, wild beasts and pestilence or plague. But whatever we call them, they are remarkably close to what we might call the 4 horsemen of ecology that regulate population size and nature. In the book, The Serengeti Rules, Sean Carroll discusses the work of pioneering ecologist Charles Elton in the 1920s. In thinking about how animal numbers are regulated to avoid overpopulation, Elton suggested that, in general, increases in numbers were held in check by predators, pathogens, parasites and food supply. Elton's 4 regulators are clearly very effective. In one astonishing passage, Carroll tells us that if a single E. coli bacterium were to double every 20 minutes, which is the rate found in optimum conditions, it would take only 2 days for the weight of E. coli to exceed the weight of the Earth. Clearly, and happily for us, that does not happen, nor does it happen for all the other species, including us. Nonetheless, we are suffering a population explosion, just as lemmings and other species do from time to time. The human population has more than tripled in the past 70 years, from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 7.8 billion today. So what happened to Elton's 4 ecological horsemen? Why are we not controlled? Or is there a 5th horseman that will cause our populations to crash at some point, as lemmings do? Welcome as we try to understand this phenomenon. In this video we will look at each of the horsemen carefully. Horsemen 1 are predators. In the Serengeti Rules, Carroll writes, "Kill the predators and the prey run amok." Human population may be running amok as we humans are apex predators, there is very little that preys on us. Our main predators are crocodiles, recording about 1,000 deaths a year, according to the online World Atlas. Lions records about 100 deaths a year, while tigers and other big cats, and occasionally wolves, some sharks about 10 deaths annually, and a few other species such as bears. The most important large animal that kills humans is none other than human beings, largely through homicide and war. The World Health Organization estimated in 2014 that almost 500,000 people died from homicide in 2012 and another 200,000 or so directly from war in 2014, with many more dying because of the hunger and diseases that result from war. Horsemen 2 and 3, pathogens and parasites. It may be useful to distinguish between what the Old and New Testaments call plague, by which I mean the infections we pass on to each other. Even though many of them, such as COVID-19, originate in other animals. Pathogens and parasites that we don't spread directly to each other but are spread to us by other animals, which might be considered pestilence, diseases spread by pests. There is a wider meaning of pestilence: animals, plants and microorganisms that harm us indirectly by attacking our crops or herds. Think of locusts, famously called plagues, rats, potato blight and many others. In some parts of the world, these have and still can cause famines. It turns out the most dangerous animals to humans are insect pests. Top of the list is the mosquito, which according to World Health Organization reports causes millions of deaths every year. Altogether, World Health Organization estimates that vector-borne diseases, caused by either parasites, bacteria or viruses kill about 700,000 people a year and sicken hundreds of millions more. But it is plagues that have been and potentially still are the really big killers of humans. For example, the Black Death killed about 1/3 of Europe's population in the 14th century, while smallpox and other diseases introduced by Europeans killed a huge proportion of the indigenous population of the Americas. Up to 90% in some communities. Plagues are still with us. The World Health Organization reports that 1.5 million people died from TB and another 770,000 people died from HIV-related causes in 2018. And of course we are in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic, and even though mortality is relatively low compared to previous serious plagues, it has killed at least 6.5 million people so far. On the other hand, we have become reasonably adept at controlling most plagues, especially through basic sanitation, hygiene and immunization. So it seems unlikely plagues will control our population, unless we get a pandemic as lethal as the Black Death. Imagine, for example, an airborne version of something like Ebola. Let us not go that way. We have 1 horseman left, that is food supply. How effective will this be in controlling the human population? So far, food supply has more than kept pace with population growth. A 2019 report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change notes that there has been more than a 30% increase in the amount of food per person since 1961. But in spite of this, an estimated 821 million people are currently undernourished, while at the same time, 2 billion adults are overweight or obese. Clearly, we have a distribution problem, not a supply problem. In summary, while food supply is challenging, a loss of food supply of a scale sufficient to create a global population decline or crash does not seem too likely, although local or regional famines may continue to occur. Which bring us to the fifth horseman. Humans. Clearly, Elton's four horsemen are not controlling the human population. But something is. While world population continues to increase, the United Nations projects it will reach 11 billion in 2100. The rate of increase, however, has dropped from 2.2% per year 50 years ago to 1.05% per year, reports Max Roser in Our World in Data. That, of course, is good news because we still need to get to zero growth. Ideal for a gradual and well-managed population decline to preserve the Earth's natural systems. In discussing this decline, Roser notes, the three major reasons are the empowerment of women, that is increasing access to education and increasing labor market participation, declining child mortality and a rising cost of bringing up children. So it seems that social factors are at work here. We are limiting our population ourselves. However, this requires increased economic development in low-income countries, as it takes a certain amount of national wealth to fund the clean water, universal education and other factors that increase social and human development. Our current system of economic and social development already exceeds the Earth's biocapacity. The overall global ecological footprint is equivalent to 1.7 planets worth of biocapacity. And if the whole world lived as in Canada, we would need almost 4 additional planets. Of course, what low-income countries need is not 4 planets but a fair share of this one small planet. And that means that those in high-income countries have to take less. But even with the overall global ecological footprint being only 1.7 planets, we have created a set of global ecological crises, among them being climate change and a new great extinction, and ushered in a new geologic epoch, the Anthropocene. In doing so, we are undermining the most fundamental ecological determinants of our health. Water, food, materials and fuels being chief among them, and vital ecosystem services. A stable climate, UV protection, waste decomposition and recycling, and the cycling of nitrogen and phosphorus being some key examples. And our intrusion into nature increases the risk of encountering and spreading new infectious diseases, as we have seen with Ebola, COVID and other diseases. We should recall that the World Health Organization has called climate change the greatest threat to health in the 21st century. It seems the most likely factor that could lead to a human population crash is a runaway hot Earth scenario combined with a mass species extinction and the other massive and rapid global ecological changes we have triggered. As well, an asteroid strike or supervolcano eruption could wipe us out. The greatest threat to the human population, the fifth horseman if you like, is us. It's amazing watching humans figuring each other out between right and wrong, love and death, biblical judgments, why we are here and who is in charge. Children out there are the key to good. Truth is to me. We will always and forever act like them. We need better guidance or we never deserve to be here, period. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up.